Welcome to Creepy Joe's Horror Show! With special guest, Slip Rick the Skeleton.
It's not my fault the babes like me, man.
Also, Flo!
Perverts.
And don't forget about your legendary loser host himself, Creepy Joe!
Welcome to Creepy Joe's Horror Show. Tonight we're going to cover Candyman from 1992.
Candyman is a 1992 American slasher film written and directed by Bernard Rose and starring Virginia Madsen, Tony Todd, Xander Berkeley, Cassie Lemons, and Vanessa E. Williams. Not to be confused with this Vanessa Williams. Candyman is based on the short story by the legend himself, Clive Barker. The film follows a Chicago graduate student who is completing a thesis on urban legends and folklore, which led her to the legend of the Candyman, who is the ghost of an artist and son of a slave who was murdered in the late 19th century.
Candyman, 1992, directed by Bernard Rose. He's an English director, and he also directed Paper House in 1988 and Immortal Beloved in 1994. Awesome director, and he's a pioneer for the digital age of film. But the screenplay was done by Clive Barker, who is one of my personal favorites of all times. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw Lord of Illusions, man, but I mean, Clive Barker is an amazing writer. He does so many different things, but we'll get to him later. Candyman starts out a grad student who's Helen Lyle, played by Virginia Madsen, is studying urban legends, and she's comes across the Candyman story, obviously.
Do I know you?
The Candyman is a man named Daniel Robitaille, who was an artist, son of a slave, and he fell in love with another artist's daughter, another painter's daughter, and they had a relationship, and he was basically tortured for it. They cut off his art hand, his right hand, and they covered him in honey to be stung by bees, eaten by bees, basically. And he is the Candyman. The hook replaces the hand, and I mean, he's one of the most iconic figures in horror to date. Amazing. Anyway, so she's supposedly, if you say his name 5 times in the mirror, he comes. So
Candyman.
that's the urban legend. So she's studying this. She says the name 5 times in the mirror. Nothing happens right away. So she continues to be the skeptic that she is until he does, reveal himself to her in a parking garage.
Who is that?
Helen.
There's all these murders going on in the urban area of Chicago. 25 different murders, the same result. Everyone thinks it's the Candyman. And see, the Candyman lives off of people's fear. So the more people that believe in him, the more powerful he is. So
Without these things, I am nothing.
when she's trying to debunk him, he'll lose all of his credibility. So the people were starting to not fear him because she was proving that he wasn't real or whatnot. He ends up, cutting off her best friend's dog's head. Her best friend, Anne-Marie, played by Vanessa Williams, and the dog gets its head cut off, and Anne-Marie's son, Anthony, her baby son, gets taken by the Candyman. And so the rest of the movie, Helen's basically trying to get the kid back, but they think she's crazy. She gets a psych evaluation. The Candyman shows up and kills the psychologist. It was all kind of, it gets pretty in depth. But all in all, the Candyman tries to burn himself and Helen and the baby alive in a fire at the end, and she ends up saving the baby, and the Candyman burns, and she ends up dying from her burn wounds in the fire, but the baby lives. And her grief-stricken husband, cheating husband, who's played by Xander Berkeley, Trevor Lau, her husband, he's a professor. He was cheating with one of his students. He's grief-stricken after she dies at the end, and so he says the name 5 times in the mirror, and she comes back, and that's an awesome ending.
What's the matter, Trevor?
Which is definitely, that's probably my most memorable part of the whole movie. Like my favorite part anyway is when she comes back at the end and takes him out. The other one is probably when the psychologist, the doctor, gets taken out. That's another one. But the whole movie's awesome. I'll have to say, like, I'll rate it a 4 out of 5. It's definitely one of my favorites. You know, watching these movies today with the way movies are done today, you know, it's hard to, like, if I were 13 years old again watching that compared to movies today, it still does well. Like, it would still affect me the same way. Growing up in a house where there was no racism, you know, I didn't understand how, like, when I watched this as a child, I didn't understand, like, why they hated him so bad, like, for being with the daughter, and I was kind of confused by it. I probably was too young to be watching it anyway. You root for him the entire time. Like, even though he's, you know, this slasher, this grisly murderer, you feel for him, and you almost want him to win. Like, you want him to have his vengeance. So awesome, just done awesomely the whole way through.
Be my victim.
Let's get into, I suppose, my top 10, you know, Clive Barker projects that he's involved in. And that doesn't necessarily mean like he directed all of them or did one single thing in each movie. He did different things in each one of these movies. Some of them he directed, some of them he did the screenplay, some of them he wrote, some of them he produced. So we'll start with, you know, because many of you might not know how many movies he was actually involved in, and it's pretty interesting. He was involved in Hellraiser in 1987. That's probably the most, you know, I don't know if it's the most notable. I guess there's some of these other ones are too, like Nightbreed in 1990, which, you know, as you know, is awesome. My personal favorite one that he was involved in is Lord of Illusions in 1995. That movie is just awesome. Yeah, everything's awesome. I say that. Like,
Yeah, man, like, find a new word.
It's badass. He did Dread in 2009. Rawhead Rex in 1986. That movie's pretty awesome. The Plague from 2006. Underworld 1985, not the vampire Underworld, but a very different Underworld 1985. It's pretty interesting. And then pretty notable Book of Blood in 2009 he did. Another one, I think Midnight Meat Train in 2008. That was a really good one. I think is that
Yeah, that's 10, but you didn't mention any babes though,
We'll
man.
just leave it at that. But there's plenty more. You can research it for yourself. But that's it. Thank you for watching Creepy Joe's Horror Show's edition of Candyman. Stay creepy.